Thanks for watching this J-Funders Intermission Spotlight. Journalism funders all appreciate the importance of local journalism to the health of our democracy, and the new documentary film Storm Lake illuminates this proposition vividly. Today we get a preview of the film, which will see its broadcast premiere on PBS next month. Megan Gelstein, Senior Program Director of the Catapult Film Fund, will discuss the project with filmmakers Beth Leviso and Jerry Risisus. Take it away, Megan.
Thank you, Vince, so much for this opportunity, and thank you, Media Impact Funders, for hosting this event and spotlighting the very beautiful film Storm Lake. It's a great honor to be here with all of you to talk about this film that I professionally and personally love so much. So as a little bit of background, Catapult came on this project in 2018 when it was just starting to form. We had been on the lookout for a project about local journalism and its importance. And when we saw this one, we knew there was something very special here. Right now, we're going to watch the trailer to provide context, and then we'll come back and hear from the filmmakers, Jerry and Beth.
In a small northwest Iowa town, the Storm Lake Times weaves the fabric of the community in large ways and small.
Yeah.
Right.
We're on deadline. We're ready to put it on the page.
I get real uptight about deadlines.
Readers decide our future, not any branch of government.
We have happy stories about all types of people.
You're a singing star.
Most people in Storm Lake care about community.
Hey, guys.
But how long does a community support journalism?
Because now people want to get their news for free, and people are saying, oh, well, that's not worth $1. And that's not how you sustain a democracy. We've always operated at the break-even point.
$7.
Mom and pop stores that were the basis of our advertising are gone.
How else do you make a small community survive?
All the meatpacking plants are infected with COVID.
No one's even talking about testing at this point.
How sickening it is forcing immigrant workers into a deadly workplace. And to me, there are blatant forms of racism and there are subtler forms of racism, but it's racism all the same.
We were the first ones to say a number of Tyson employees tested positive. And then there was this dramatic spike. It was unbelievable. We're continuing to report on the numbers as best we can.
Now, Storm Lake is the hottest spot in the country.
It's been a pretty stressful time, and we're losing money, and there ain't a thing you can do about it.
Our ads fell off a cliff.
It doesn't make a lot of sense to go borrow money when we could just walk away from it now.
You can change the world through journalism. The reporter is the cornerstone in a functioning democracy. And without strong local journalism, the fabric of the place becomes frayed.
The prospect of the newspaper not being around terrifies me.
So if we do the right things here, we'll be all right.
So let's get that story.
That was fantastic. Great. Okay. Spectacular film, spectacular trailer. Beth, Jerry, let's just start from the beginning. How did this film come to be? What drew you to the story? How did it come to be?
Great. I can start with that because I'm a fellow Iowan of arts and the Cullens. I grew up in a small farm outside of a smaller town than Storm Lake called Buffalo Center. And I'm still very interested in all things Iowan and love my home state. And I was watching the announcements in the spring of 2017 when the Pulitzers were coming out and saw the headline was Small North Iowa Newspaper Wins Pulitzer. So it was a real bulb for me, I guess, or a bulb light turning on. And I immediately read the article, found art online, read all of the articles that won the Pulitzer, and then reached out to him as I was going to be going out over the summer to visit my parents, and asked if he would mind if I tagged along for an afternoon just to see if there was a fuller story there. And I did, and I fell in love with his story and with the Cullens and with the town of Storm Lake. Even it's really a quite special place, and I then worked at it. In fact, with you, Megan, and then eventually with Beth as well. So it was quite a journey. But
That's great. And how you both have other connections. I'm just curious how the two of you connected.
Yeah, so Jerry and I both teach together at the School of Visual Arts in New York City. Jerry teaches cinematography and I teach producing. And so, after Jerry made that first trip, he invited me to take a look at his materials, and I was busy and hadn't really had a chance. And but then this is sort of a story about the capacity for good journalism to draw you in. And so in about August of 2018, Jerry said, hey, there's a piece in the New York Times by Art Cullen. Did you happen to capture it? And I opened my computer. I read this editorial. They were probably some of the most powerful 800 words I'd ever read. And I thought, wow, if those words are giving me the feelings that I'm having, maybe there's really something here. And that's the point at which Jerry and I joined forces and really started to move the project forward, preparing an application for Catapult and other funders so that we could get the ball rolling.
And the ball rolling you did, for sure. I think for people listening to this project, this film began in 2018. And so you think, oh, geez, that's 3 years. But actually, this team worked so quickly. The life of a film is usually longer than this. So not only is the film beautiful, but it came together quickly. So
very quickly.
Very quickly. And I think that's because everyone can recognize that this topic is extremely important.
And thanks to some really essential philanthropy. And it was organization. There were public foundations, private foundations, individuals. I mean, that was really the fuel in our engine.
Great point. Thank you. So you were drawn to it, Jerry was drawn to it, we were drawn to it. Let's talk a little bit about why local journalism is important and what its connection is to democracy.
Great. I think, there's such a connection, and I think Art mentions it, in several different ways throughout the documentary. But he's interested in his community. He wants to see a thriving community. He wants his community to know what's happening in town, whether it's going to the school board meeting, whether the garbage is being picked up, whether it's a city hall meeting, or whether it's a tax abatement, or whoever is paying taxes, what their taxes are being spent on. And in the case of Storm Lake, Iowa plays a very outsized role in national politics. So many people were coming to visit Art and Iowa in the run up to the elections in 2020. So there was a lot of national politics at play, but we really didn't want to make the film about politics. We really wanted to make it about the newspaper, but using politics as a kind of a goalpost. So, its connection to local democracy is vital because people depend on it. And I believe that the Cullens really showed that in their film.
Yeah, and I mean, Art says in the film, if it didn't happen in Buena Vista County, it didn't happen. And that's their editorial mandate. And as soon as he said that, we realized that would be the world of the film. And I think that so many Americans have this idea that participating in your democracy means voting in the national elections or maybe your state elections. But I think we certainly learned in the making of this film that in this moment, we've partially become so divided because we don't understand our neighbors. We don't understand people who don't look like us or who might have different accents. And yet these are people that so many of us live amongst. And so this idea that a newspaper can put us all on the same page is very powerful. It can help us understand our community, the immediate world in which we live. And I think Art believes, and we've really started to believe, that that's as important as understanding who is running for state senator or who is running for president. And, you know, we have to be engaged at all these levels in order to be informed citizens in a democracy.
Those are great answers. And your articulation of the importance clarifies, you know, the importance of keeping local journalism, and you feel what the loss would feel if we, you know, as it gets chipped away. So thank you for that. You're talking about the moment in which you made this film. You made this film in a very particular moment. Could you talk a little bit about how COVID impacted the production?
Yeah, you know, we struggled. We had just been in Iowa for the caucuses, and Beth and I had both planned then to be, I think, mid-March or April, I think we had planned to go out for another shoot. So when COVID hit, you know, we were blindsided. I mean, the world was blindsided. There's no sort of skipping around that. You know, nobody knew which way was up. We certainly couldn't travel for anyone's safety. So we knew that it was very important, though, that the Storm Lake Times continue to report just to protect their community, because it is a big ag. Tyson is in town, and so it was very important that people know what was happening in town, testing, vaccinations, who was getting ill. So I, as a cinematographer, have equipment in my basement. So I was able to actually bring equipment up into my kitchen, and we would continue to do these long interviews with all of the Cullens that you see during the COVID section. But we were also then able to lean into the newspaper, because then the newspaper was telling the story. You know, we got all their newspapers. We shot a lot of the headlines and the storylines that actually brought us through their reporting. So it was a newspaper, their interviews, and then also a little bit of Dolores and local shooter that was able to go out and capture some of the empty streets. So it was very important for us to do that.
But it was also a critical creative and journalistic opportunity for the film, because if we wanted to show the role that local news plays in a community, here was the opportunity. We ourselves actually couldn't get out there, but there was the newspaper reporting the story. And so we really leaned into it. And it was a moment that allowed us to show this paper, its nonstop coverage and investigation. And it also is a moment in which we see some of Art's strengths as an editor, as a thinker, as a reporter, as someone who's able to put all these issues together kind of in this moment and these complex issues in such a clear way. And so it really was, it's a fulcrum of activity really in that moment in the film.
Amazing, yeah. We have not very much time left. I could talk about this film for hours. I'm wondering what you would like audiences to take away from this film.
Yeah, I mean, we made a really intentional effort to make as intimate a film as we could as possible. We really wanted it to be about the Storm Lake Times, the Cullen family, and the Storm Lake community. But our hope was that in going deep, then we could strike universal themes. And really our goal with the film is that people see it and they rethink their own relationship to local news. Are they supporting their local newspaper? Could they subscribe? What could they do? And that it leads to civic engagement, and that it leads to us kind of getting closer to our democratic ideals and our responsibility of being informed citizens.
Great.
Yeah, that's great. I would only add that one line that Art says, freedom is not free. You know, he's hoping that people see that there is a value to the engagement you get from a local newspaper, and and they seek out the truth. They ask questions. They go and they talk and they stand next to their neighbors. That scene with Lorena Lopez is amazing, because they're basically taking down what social media has done to some of our news sources. So it's our hope, I think, that people really take away the civic engagement and are able to reconnect to their communities that way.
That's perfect and very clear. Can you let people know where they can see the film?
Will be on Independent Lens on National PBS on November 15th of 2021. So very soon.
Tune in.
Well, thanks, Megan, for leading a really thoughtful interview. We can see why you love this project so much. And thanks, Jerry and Beth. We're really looking forward to seeing the film. We'll definitely be tuning in. Thank you all.
Okay, great.
Thank
Thanks
you
so
so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Beth.
Bye.